Welcome back to Bottom Line. I'm Mark Crumpton in New York. The latest U.S. Census figures show a dramatic transformation. 1 out of every 6 Americans is now Hispanic. And the latest figures from the University of Georgia show that Hispanic buying power in the U.S. is expected to grow from the current $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion in 2015. Here to help us understand the depth of this buying power and the dynamics of the Hispanic market is Manny Espinoza, the CEO of the Association of Latino Professionals in Finance and Accounting, known by the acronym ALPHA. Mr. Espinoza joining us from our bureau in Los Angeles. Sir, welcome to Bottom Line. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, Mark, thank you for the invitation. Looking forward to sharing some thoughts with you.
Mr. Espinoza, these are some very dramatic numbers, as I mentioned. This now 1 in 6 Americans, that means 50 million people are now Hispanic in the United States. How did this growth start? And are you surprised by the number?
Well, I'm not surprised, but I think a lot of people were significantly surprised. I think the estimates are significantly more than, I think they said 28 states actually had an increase in population more than they'd estimated. But everybody had seen what was coming up, and I think there's other significant things that ought to be noted. It's also the demographics. You know, where are these Hispanics? You saw significant growth in the West and the South, and it's a young population as well. So this population is going to have a significant impact on the future of America.
Sir, speaking of the impact, that would also include an economic impact. What is that going to do to change the landscape, the labor force in the United States?
Well, there's a significant talent pool that's growing out of these statistics. Well, first of all, I think that I think this is a call to action. It's a call to actions for companies to position themselves to understand the cultural, have insight about the Latino population, so they can better be prepared to attract, recruit, and retain Latinos. I think that companies are going to position themselves to do more of this, and as long as they continue to, look for guidance in this regard with organizations like ALPHA, position that already have established relationships and insight and thoughtfulness, I think companies that use those resources that exist will be significantly better going forward.
Now, we have some traditionally large Hispanic markets, and those would include states like California, like Texas, like Florida, New York, and Illinois. But we're also seeing growth in some other places that would not in the past have been considered traditional places where the Hispanic population might assemble or might congregate. Were you surprised by that?
Well, we have 39 chapters across the country and 80 student chapters, and that growth is coming in some areas that people would not have imagined. We are heavily, investing in the Midwest and the South specifically, and although we're strong in those places that you would expect growth to be, which would be like the Texas, the Arizonans, and the Californias, we ourselves as an organization are seeing the growth within all those communities that our chapters exist.
Sir, what does this mean in terms of the economic outlook for this country? We talked about the labor force, but in terms of the spending power of Hispanic Americans, we mentioned that spending power is significant. What is that going to mean to help tip the balance and get this economy moving again, specifically as regards consumer sentiment and people, at least in the psychological aspect of this, not being afraid to go out and spend their money at this time?
Well, I think that, first of all, I agree with you in the sense that this Latino consumer market is significantly growing. You mentioned $1.5 trillion. I think the other thing is understanding the demographics and the background. It's a young population. And so consequently, what are those needs of the younger buyers that we have coming up? And I think those companies that have a better insight and do their homework in terms of what are those buying patterns, spending patterns of Latinos, will be much better positioned to put their companies in a situation that will appeal to Latinos. I think I was just going to add that the Latino community is becoming more aware and proud of their heritage. And so they are going back to some of the consumer buying buying habits that they may have had in the past.
Well, the phenomenal rise and explosive increase in the Hispanic consumer, at least from my perspective, for the last several years, that's been one of the worst kept secrets in the United States. A lot of people thought that perhaps that it was mainly targeted towards areas like Miami, areas like Texas, areas like Los Angeles, New York City. But that explosive growth is being seen across the country, and not just, if you will, on Hispanic television like Univision and Telemundo.
Absolutely. As I go around the country visiting the different cities where chapters exist, I also am astounded. But you see a growing number. The signs are there. A growing Hispanic Chamber of Commerces. Just go into any grocery store and look at what's on the stand. It's pretty obvious to anybody who wants to become aware that there is a significant change in companies positioning themselves to serve the Latin community.
Mr. Espinoza, as more Hispanics become part of the U.S. labor force, what is that telling CEOs and those small entrepreneurs about how they might target the Hispanic community and how that community might best serve them?
Well, first of all, they better be a company that believes that diversity is very, very important.
Right.
They also better, at a higher level, better start creating opportunities to bring Latino talent into those opportunities, because the Latino community will expect it, and they will, and if you want to position yourself as an employer of choice, they want to see role models. They need to see people in management positions, and I think we need to create those opportunities for them.
Mr. Espinoza, in our last minute, how is this growing Hispanic population going to change or influence the debate about immigration in this country?
Mark, that's we're not experts in immigrations, but I know one thing that's very, very important. We believe strongly in education, and we have to break down barriers and challenges that restrict Hispanics across the country to get more education. And so we have to increase education, make sure we have more high school graduates, more college graduates, and get more individuals at the higher levels in companies.
Manny Espinoza, the CEO of the Association of Latino Professionals in Finance and Accounting, Alpha, joining us from Los Angeles. Mr. Espinoza, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, listeners.
Thank you, sir.